Welcome to another episode of the One Life podcast. This week, diving deeper into our FaceTime series with the topic of technology.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great discussion today as we kind of dive deeper into the sermon. But I mean, obviously, we're using technology right now. You are either listening to this, watching this, using technology. So we're not at all saying turn off all the technology. Please hear us when we say that. But dive deeper, Pastor Jared, into some of the three things. We talked about limiting our technology, then leveraging it, and then also to look away from some of the temptations that technology brings. So let's break those down.
Okay.
Limiting technology. I'll be honest with you. Whenever we left church yesterday, my wife immediately is like, "What's your screen time? We
100%.
need to set limits on this. How are we doing?" I'm like, "Thanks, Pastor Jared. Thanks for putting me in this
You're
situation."
welcome. So do you want to share what your average screen time usage is? Or did you not have that turned on
The
your
week
phone?
before I did. The week before, mine was just under 5 hours.
Okay.
And I felt pretty good about that.
Yeah. What was Juliet's?
Hers was not turned on.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So
hers
you'll
is
find
now
out next
turned on.
week.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's going to be way higher. She was giving me crap
So
about it. Am I allowed to say crap?
mine was around that same, about 4.6. Amanda's was off the charts.
Okay.
But part of it, and this is how I was throwing shade at her, but part of it is she runs her business off of her phone and with all the classes, and she's always in the video and doing all that. So, I mean, that is the balance, right? Of the technology is good, and I know a lot of people that run businesses and all that stuff off of their mobile phone. That's not what I'm talking about, right? It's those moments of what are you doing with it? Because ultimately, what you consume is what you think about, and what you think about is actually how you end up behaving. And so that's why having the limits on there is so important. But let me go back for a moment. Probably had more people. It's like before a sermon, I can't wait for this message. We've been trying to figure this out, and then my husband and I are not in agreements, or my wife and I are not in agreements on limits for our kids or whatever that is. So the goal was not to be, prescriptive. It was more descriptive of this is why this is important.
Yeah.
And then figure out the rhythm that's best for your family. And also, I think we need to share this again from the sermon, is we are only 17 years into this experiment of smartphones and having access to everything in the palm of our hand. The data is clear. Let me say it this way. The data is coming out, but it's only 17 years old. We still do not know the long-term effects all of this is having on us, specifically now on our kids, who they've known nothing different than having a screen.
Yeah.
We don't know what that's going to mean for them in the future, but I think it's very fascinating. And do you remember the movie a couple years ago? It came out called The Social Experiment. I think it was a Netflix or Amazon deal. And they're talking about all the social media experts and inventors and all of these things that they hired. And they're like, all those guys are like, we are not letting our kids on any of it.
Yeah.
And we have very strict levels of screen time.
Yeah.
If that's the people who are inventing this, I think we need to wake up and be like, it's not just, I know it's easy just to throw, and I'm guilty of it too, right? Oh, get away from me. And my kid's like, here's, get on your phone. Yeah. We just have no idea what this is actually causing in our kids. I think this is the social experiment. So a message like this, I left so much on the cutting room floor. And I probably studied double for this sermon than what I did for any other sermon in this series. But if you remember The Social Experiment, that movie, the social media and technology experts, who did they hire? When they were coming up with this, they hired the executives from pornography companies. We can associate, how do we get people to become addicted to this product or this technology? And that alone should just put the red flags up.
Yeah.
If that's who's coming out and pushing all these in front of our faces, we need to be aware that this probably isn't what's best. So that was my goal at the beginning of that sermon, is just hey, wisdom. This is not a young adult problem. This is a human problem. And if we don't learn how to control it, it will control us. It's designed, it's created by the inventors to do that. So we've got to be on the front side of this in advance. It's okay, how can we limit, leverage, and then just the discipline of looking away.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that again.
Yeah.
Just to make sure we're aware that this is a real deal. And it's so easy to point the fingers at the younger generation, but no, it's a human problem.
Yeah.
and we need to get a handle on it.
I do think there's danger in the other end of the spectrum in regards to like forget all technology, it's all terrible.
Yeah.
You should only have a hard copy Bible, right? Like there's dangers in isolating ourselves from the culture.
Yep.
And so that's where we transition into the leverage piece, right?
Yep.
So what are the things I would break this down into two categories. From an individual standpoint first, what would you tell someone like, hey, you can leverage technology to grow yourself spiritually in this way? And then talk about it from the corporate side of like, as a church, as the leader of our organization, how do we leverage technology to grow?
So I think so personally, and not just spiritually speaking, but like you can leverage technology, and you should leverage tech. I think technology is amazing. So technology is neither good nor bad. It is immoral, meaning what you do with it makes it good or bad. So you can build very successful companies and organizations using the best technology that's out there. And you should. If it's there and you can afford it and it fits, like why wouldn't you want to use things that make your life easier? So not just business side, but then the personal side, the spiritual side. There are incredible, this is what's amazing. Back when I was in college, in seminary, like I would do all of my research the old-fashioned way, like in the library, going through all the books, footnoting, bibliographies, all of that. Hours and hours and hours just in research. But now you can easily type in like Google, and all of those resources come to the palm of your hand. That's the benefit. That's the amazing thing about technology. But you're actually able to get that stuff just, the click of a button. So what you're able to learn and grow spiritually speaking today, you can get that stuff so much faster. I can put sermons together so much faster than what I ever could before, just because of technology. So again, I'm not for or against. I'm saying like it's really good. So if that's the case, then leverage that for your spiritual growth. The 1 year, so the YouVersion Bible app, every Christian should have that downloaded, and simply just get that verse of a day, or sign up for a devotional plan. That app is absolutely amazing. Of all the devotional plans, they have one for men, they have one for women, couples. Just something that you get sent to your inbox or that notification, and it forces you to do it, right? And then hold each other accountable to it. Like those are ways that you leverage technology for your spiritual growth. Podcasts like this, right? Like we know that people are consuming content. So why wouldn't we want to throw more content out there? And again, it's just the reminder of you could listen to this, or you can listen to a podcast that's not going to fill your soul spiritually speaking. So we want to be on the front side of that.
If you're like me, it's a 3-hour pretend prank video, and you're like, "What? How did I just watch this?"
Is that the holes you go into?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like, Grayson's a huge into football, and so like what I'll do, this is being a dad, probably an overbearing dad, is like finding, hey, what are the best skill, position things that you could be doing, and going on the YouTube thing of, telling my son these are the things you're going to be doing in our one-on-one time that we have together. And 3 hours later, I'm like, oh man, I just wasted a full night of watching, Pee-wee football instruction. But yeah, I mean, all of those things are true. And again, that in and of itself is not bad. Me doing that, I cannot justify that was terrible.
Right.
But it's okay, if that's all you do and you're not filling your soul and your mind with anything else, as I said in the sermon, if you're not careful, 1 week turns into a month, and 1 month turns into a year. And what has discipled you over the last year is ESPN, Twitter, Fox News, CNN, more than the Word of God. And what you think about is what you consume. And what you consume, eventually you will begin to behave that way. So that's why this is so critical, that if you're spending, on average, the average American adult is 4 to 6 hours a day looking at their phone every 4.3 minutes. What are you looking at? And why are you looking at the things that you're looking at? That is the way we limit, and the way that we begin to leverage of saying, nope, it's here, it's good. Cell phones are good.
Right.
But how are you using that to fill your soul, spiritually speaking?
That's good.
And I'm a big Audible guy. So when I'm in my car, I'll put Audible, like a book that I'm reading. So technology, and I'll put it on 1.5 speed, and it's blaring in my car when I'm driving into work, or a podcast or a sermon. that is some of my screen time that shows up daily. But you have to have put those rhythms in place and be committed that I'm not just going to use it for ESPN and Twitter and Fox News or whatever. I'm going to make sure I'm putting good stuff into my soul.
I think the screen time thing, knowing your screen time, it also gives you a little bit more of a self-awareness of how much time you actually do have. I think we've talked about this a lot when we say, like, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. And you're like, well, you make time for the things that you want to do.
Right.
But when you look at your screen time, you realize, oh, I had an hour and a half on YouTube today.
Yep.
I probably did have time.
That's a really good point. I mean, and self-awareness is always the hardest piece. So you cannot, I think I say this probably a lot, but you cannot grow spiritually until you're self-aware. And self-awareness is very difficult. And the hardest person you're ever going to lead is yourself. So that is true. When you turn it on and you're like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I could probably turn it off and not be on it as much. It's a good reminder.
Yeah. All right. So leverage it from a corporation standpoint. Then, what do you feel like when you took over fall of 2017? What are some things we've put in place from a technology standpoint to leverage that and to grow our church?
Well, it's amazing, right? 7 years ago, technology is so far advanced, but just the simple fact of online services, we were video recording our messages, but we weren't live streaming, and that COVID kind of forced us to do that. And that's been one of the best things for us. We hear stories all the time of people that are watching online from around the country here in Mesa, and it's having great impact and influence. So online service is a big deal. That's here to stay. Yes, is worshiping in the room better? By far. But it's the front door, and people are already watching 2 or 3 services before they ever show up anyway. So,
or more than that. I did a person at Growth Track this last weekend. They said they watched all of the Win in Roman series, and then finally for Easter, they're like, I'll come in person. And they've been coming.
That's great. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's part of the deal, right? If it's here to stay, we want to make it as great as we can. We're going to continually invest to make it great. This podcast, everything that we do online. I mean, you can talk more about even the texting piece. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the number one way we follow up with people now is not through email, it is through texting.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the best ways we can connect with people and actually get responses. Emails have turned into like, here's some stuff you need to know, but we hardly ever get emails back. We've kind of tweaked and changed a lot of that stuff. We get a lot more responses through text messaging because the people are on their phones and it's right there. It's easy. They're replying to text messages back and forth, but yeah.
And that's really good. And social media, I think, is huge. People are, as soon as they find out, they're going immediately to Instagram, Facebook to see our stuff, and which is why people connect with faces. Right? Even through technology, people want to see, hey, can I see myself there? So when they show up and they see faces and they see people like, hey, would I fit in a place like that? Which is why social media is important.
Yeah.
But leveraging it the right way.
Yeah.
And having a healthy balance with it.
I also think we pretty much have a balance with everything with technology. We haven't really gone all the way with technology with anything. Like even our connection cards, we have in-person cards. We have a text option.
Right.
Sermon notes, we have in-person sermon notes. We have a technology option. Worship guide, same thing, right? So we keep that balance.
Yeah.
From a church standpoint.
I think it's a both and. I think you have to live in that world for a while. Will it always be that way? I don't know. But right now, but Easter, we decided that the Easter survey was just going to be the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And people could still, text the word commit and get that survey. But yeah, I mean, and I correct me if I'm wrong, I still think the vast majority of people that we get to respond to following Jesus is still checking the box.
Yeah. Way more people turn in cards. Yeah.
Than texting the word commit. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, technology is a huge piece. We have to leverage it. It'd be remiss of us if we didn't find every avenue that we possibly could. And here's the amazing thing about technology, if you really think about it. Like, it's pretty inexpensive for us to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
We have to hire people to manage it, but just to use those platforms, it's basically free.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting for us. We kind of started putting some investment, advertising in YouTube, just to kind of, promote podcasts and promote sermons and different things like that. And we've seen a gigantic response from subscribers and all of that just coming our way through through just a little bit of promotion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah. That's good.
And to leverage it as much as we can to reach. And again, goes back to why are we doing it? To reach more people for Jesus and meet people where they are. And guess what? People are on their phone 9 hours a day.
That's crazy.
It's insane.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So the look away piece as we kind of land the plane.
Yeah.
I don't like, we can spend time talking about like what the eyes bouncing, like you talked about, and hey, don't go to this website. I think most of like what's sin is sin. So I don't want to spend necessarily time on that as far as a question.
Can I say one statement though? So about the eyes bouncing, this older guy came to me after the 10:30 service. It was so funny. And he's like, hey, when I was a missionary, our mission board was an older missionary guy that was our mentor. And I was talking about, right, hey, the first look doesn't get you in trouble. It's the second and third look. You got to learn how to bounce your eyes. Or just because it shows up on your phone doesn't mean you have to look at it. You can turn it off, right? Be disciplined. So he's like, you know what our mission board used to tell us? I'm like, oh, do I want to know this? So they would say, hey, the first look is free.
Oh dear.
So you better make it long.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I can't preach that. But I couldn't stop laughing.
Oh no.
First look is free, make it long. I'm like, no, that's not right. He was joking, of course, but man, it made me laugh. That first look, you can't oftentimes control it.
Yeah.
But it's that second and third that really gets you into trouble.
Bounce your eyes
Or if you make
quickly.
it a long look, yeah.
It was only one look.
Should have
that's not what
had
we mean.
that footnote, quickly bounce your eyes.
That's a good point.
Okay. Anyway.
So part of my question with the look away piece really has to do with social media. We talked about this off air a little bit.
Yeah.
But like getting off social media, what are the dangers, like the comparison trap we talk about? What are some of the lies the enemy tries to tell us within social media? And why should we look away and not spend so much time consuming some of what he wants for us?
Yeah, so there was two ways in the sermons that I was thinking about going, like talking about all, social media or just technology. I kind of didn't want to handle the social media piece. I think we can talk about that in other sermons. This is more technology, but make no mistake, social media is very, very, very difficult. And that's the things that are creating the new grooves in our minds. It's the FOMO, fear of missing out. It's the comparison. It's all of those things that we see. And I just like to say it this way, social media is not real. Like rarely are people like being completely honest. It's just a highlight reel.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for you just to look at everybody else's life and make the comparison, especially teenagers. I don't care if it's boys or girls. And that's what's causing lots of depression, lots of mental health issues. They're seeing pictures of a party they weren't invited to, right? And not understanding all the context or the backstory. It's been really difficult. So yeah, that's why I'm like, man. So one of my really good friends, and I think Amanda and I are in agreement with this, that our kids, when they live in our house, up until they will not have social media. I mean, YouTube, like kids YouTube, Grayson has a football channel that's all full of Prime videos or whatever. But
don't promote it. It has more subscribers than us.
That's true. I won't.
Don't promote
do
it.
not follow my son. But that's a little bit different for us because we're going to use that like as his football stuff. Yeah. But social media, I mean, I just think you have to be so careful. Yeah. And I made the joke, right, of like, your kids will be fine. Get them a box fan and they'll stand in front of that for hours, right? And just, that's the idea of like, we turned out, we didn't have social media and we're fine. I mean, however you want to define
I did
fine.
more than you. I'm a little younger.
It's a little younger. You're like 10 years younger than me.
We don't have to tell everybody.
I think that in the moment, the pressure for kids to have it is so great. And you're probably going to be like the uncool parent in the moment. But man, what you're fighting for, I would say draw the line in the sand and say, this is how I'm taking back my family. Yeah. And I'm not going to allow this to control you. And just lie in the sand. Like it's so that, and again, I'm not saying that's what families should do. I'm just saying, I think that's where we're going to land and just say, nope, it's not healthy for you. Yeah. And there's so many other things in your teenage life that you have to worry about. I don't want you to have to worry about that.
Right. So I would say, like, do you want a popular 14-year-old or a person you're really proud of when they're 24? Yeah. Right. And that's the difference between those. So
I think I share this every time we kind of do like a parenting deal. Like Amanda and I always tell ourselves, like even like Gianna, she's turning 13 and she's switching schools next year. And we're having this conversation of like our goal is to raise a really great 30-year-old. Not oh, look at her, she's so successful at 15. Like, no, like what's her when she's 30?
Yeah,
What type of person is she going to be?
that's good.
And that's a huge reminder for us all the time.
Yeah.
And that's again, that's discipline by taking yourself out of the moment of what might be a simple solution, but no, what's the best long-term thing? And by the way, all the best leaders and best organizations think that way. Not what's best right now, what's best 15 years from now. And that is a very hard discipline to always follow through with.
Yeah.
So I hope people got my heart with that. I am not standing on this stage or even sitting at this seat right now being like, hey, I have it all figured out, because we don't.
Yeah.
We're on a journey. And as our kids get older, I know that's some of the rub, like, yeah, but you don't have teenagers yet. I mean, I get that, which is why I was just trying to be, hey, this is biblical wisdom. And I think if you follow these 3 things, it'll help bring clarity to technology, and even social media and everything else we're dealing with.
I think sometimes, like, when we look at the big picture of and asking like to limit or to look away, it seems almost, if you're saturated in it, like too big of a commitment. So one of the things with like our 21 days of prayer and fasting and some other opportunities, like take a couple weeks, 3 weeks, fast from it, and see what God does during that time. And you'll kind of bring some awareness to, okay, I'm definitely spending way too much time in this. I don't need this. This isn't filling my cup spiritually. I need to come away from it. But maybe sometimes a small commitment of, I can do 2 weeks. I'm not saying for the rest of my life I'm off Instagram, but for 2 weeks I'll be off Instagram.
I had a pastor friend of mine, 21 days of prayer and fasting. He's like, it is the science even, so not just the spiritual side, because what you just said is right, but even the science of being able to like tell yourself no and following through, the benefits of that are incredible.
Yeah.
Of the things that you have power to overcome that you don't think you can. Like, oh, I can never do that. No, you can.
Yeah.
And just doing that year over year over year just gives you the ability. And I don't know what it does with the wiring, but it definitely does something.
Man, it's really good.
Yeah. It's good. Good stuff, man.
All right, we're continuing FaceTime this week, Mother's Day weekend.
Gentlemen, don't forget.
Bring your moms with you.
That's right.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. We got like roses for all the ladies in attendance. We also have child dedications this weekend. That's a cool moment for us.
No doubt.
But photo booth area, the whole thing. So it'll be a great weekend. You kind of joke around a lot in Arizona. This is like our big last big Sunday, last big weekend.
Well, it's crazy.
Before summer.
So it is like this is like the last big, I would say, probably a 3rd or 4th most attended weekend of the year. And then right after that, graduations for high school is in. So, and then you have graduation parties, Memorial Day. I mean, there's a moment that I'm just probably going to say after Mother's Day, hey, see y'all in August, right? That's just the way people operate here in the Valley. And it's starting to get 100 degrees. So.
Yes, it is.
Here we go, man. Summer's upon us.
All right. Good stuff.
It is.
Well, we're excited about the summer. We're excited about all the things we got coming up, and we'll give you guys some more details. We are going to take the summer off. So we got 2 more podcast episodes. We'll take our Summer at One Life series off. A lot of guest speakers, a lot of in and outs of that. Yep. And then we'll come back to it to kick off the Revelation series.
Yeah, here we go.
In August.
Be a lot of fun things to talk about in that.
Yes, there will be.
Can't wait.
All right. Well, remember, the church is not a building we sit in. It's a movement we get to be a part of to help reach one more life for Jesus.
Go.